Hi everyone. Thank you for tuning in. This is Real Talk with Coach Sherri. And once again, I am taking you along with me as I walk and talk. Whew. I was just running away from some huge bees. And yeah, it was a whole gang of them. But for this walk and talk, as I know many of you, just about all of us, are quarantined and directed to stay at home. I am still venturing out. If nothing else, I'm still venturing out in my neighborhood to walk and try and get some fresh air. It's about 12 noon and already it's 80 degrees here, and it is just too beautiful to stay indoors. But what I want to talk to you guys about today is I wanted to share a situation that occurred after I had our firstborn. Whew, you know, having a baby is never easy. And prior to having our first child, I did experience a miscarriage. And so when I got pregnant the second time, I was definitely trying to be extremely careful, not thinking too far ahead, not getting beside myself where I'm just assuming everything is going to be all good. However, when I got out of that time frame, after the first 3 months, I started really taking even better care of myself by working out, because I knew for sure that in labor, if I made it that far, I would need strength and endurance. So I worked out every day. I can't say I ate the best, but I did eat a lot cleaner. And thankfully, my mother-in-law, who taught school in Brooklyn for 30 years, retired shortly after we found out we were pregnant. And she retired. And so, my husband and I at the time were living in New Orleans, and he was playing for the New Orleans Saints. So a lot of times he had, to do mini camps, and he was getting ready for camp for the summer. They were gone about seven weeks, and that was during my third trimester. So my mother-in-law moved in with us for that time period, so I wouldn't be alone. I couldn't go home. Home was too far. New Jersey was too far for me to go home for the summer at that time. So I needed someone with me. So she was that one, and I was very grateful for her. My mother and father ran a business, so my mother couldn't come as often. She came periodically, but she couldn't be there like my mother-in-law. And my father-in-law was generous to allow his wife to spend that much time away. He would come because he was still working, so he would come periodically as well, to spend that quality time with his wife and to check up on me as well. But yeah, so my son's due date was October 2nd, and I didn't know anything about, babies and how things are done in that way. I mean, I did have a niece and nephew. They were like, at that time, about 2.5, 3 maybe. And I didn't know what to expect. But, and I say that because one of my sister-in-laws had, what's it called? Ooh, this is a steep little hill. When you have too much salt, you start retaining water. So my nephew was born prematurely. He was born at 28 weeks. And my other sister-in-law, she had my niece full term. And both ended up being very healthy babies, but two different unpredictable situations. So I didn't know what to expect from me, because I know every person's different, and every pregnancy, even from the same person, can be different. So at any rate, towards the end of my pregnancy, I started communicating with one of my favorite cousins. She lived in New York, and by that time she just had her third child too. And so we would email each other every single day. Prior to email, we used to fax each other every single day. And then AOL came out, and I got my disc and did that. But at any rate, I was emailing her all that day, and this was the 24th of September, and I was telling her how I was having these cramps, and I didn't, it felt like menstrual cramps. And throughout the day, I just felt them, didn't think anything of it. I knew that I had been dilated by like maybe 2 or 3 centimeters by then, according to my last appointment. But, being a new mom, I didn't know what to expect. So I was emailing her that evening. We had dinner, but I didn't really eat because my cramps were getting so bad. I should say my quote unquote cramps were getting so bad. And she said, wait a minute, how far apart are they? Because you keep talking about these cramps. And I thought that was a bird. And they seem like they're coming really regular. So I started timing them, and I said they come about every 8 to 10 minutes. And she said, Sherri, oh my goodness, you are in labor. And I was like, what? You think I'm really in labor? She said, yes, you need to go to the hospital now. So I went to look for my husband, and he was in the back room working out, because that's what he did after practice, because by now it's the football season, and he was working out, doing some cardio. And I said to him, Clarence, I think this is it. I think I'm getting ready to have the baby. I need to go to the hospital. You need to call the doctor. He was like, oh my gosh, okay, let's go. I said, wait, let me tell your mother. And I think I want to take a shower first. He was like, what? So I was looking for his mom, and she was just coming in from walking our dog, who was our trial baby. He was about 2 years old. His name was Dino. He was a boxer. Oh my goodness, you guys, if you don't know, the best dog, especially as a trial baby, is a boxer. Because first of all, they are like little kids in a dog suit anyway. And he was just wonderful. But my mother-in-law was just coming in from walking him. So I was like, Mom, I have to get ready to go to the hospital. I think I'm having the baby. And now this is a week before my due date. And I think she always kind of knew I was going to have the baby soon, because, like I said, I worked out every day. And that last week, I just didn't even have I didn't even have the energy really to go to the gym, but I still wanted to do something. So her and I would just walk the mall, from one end to the other, then walk up the stairs, then the other end, then walk back down the stairs. And so, I think she knew then that I was probably not too far from having the baby. So she was like, all right, then let me get my things. And so she went to her room. I took a shower. I came out. My husband said he called the doctor. The doctor said, to come in. So we went in, and it was about maybe 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And I was in labor, y'all. Full-fledged labor. However, my baby still didn't come until that morning. So I didn't, oh, this is cute. Some kids wrote on chalk here. I didn't take any, epidural or anything like that. I kept it, I just probably just manned up and handled it. I did have an exercise ball, so whenever I got really bad contractions, I would sit on it. My husband and I walked the halls, and it was manageable. I was okay. So my son was born about 7 o'clock that morning on the 25th, and my husband, it was on a Friday, so he made sure his mother and I were good, and that from the hospital, he went straight to practice. They just basically had walkthroughs because they had a game that Sunday, and they were going to be leaving on that Saturday for the game. And so I was hungry. I'll probably have to talk about that in another video of my labor. I was more hungry than pain, I remember I kept asking for food. They wouldn't give me any food. And so after I had them, and being that we were in New Orleans, oh my goodness, you guys, the food that they gave me was like jambalaya, red beans and rice, salad, bread pudding, with the raisins and bourbon sauce and all. I mean, it was delicious. I felt like I was at someone's home. They gave it to me and my mother-in-law. She had a bed in there with me. And so, yeah, so we had the baby. I had the baby. And like I said, my husband went to practice. He came back to the hospital after practice. He was exhausted because he only slept a little bit of time that we slept in the hospital. Plus he had practice, and it was just a lot going on. So it's so beautiful out here today, you guys. Oh my goodness. So at any rate, he came back and he was like, I'm gonna come by. He had to go home after that. His mother stayed with me, and he was like, I'm gonna go home, take care of Dino, get ready for tomorrow, and I'm gonna come back by here in the morning before I go to the airport or whatever. So I said, okay, that's cool. So, they have a nice playground back of their house. So that Friday, I just had him that morning. So that day, I'm trying to get some rest. They bringing him in. He's trying to nurse, and just a lot of things. Just I guess to me it was like just regular stuff going on. I was up and walking around. That next day, in the morning, my husband came by early, and he was like, "All right, I'm leaving, going to the airport. If anything, Mom's here to help you out, and I'll be back Sunday night." I'm like, "All right, cool." So he goes, and it's I want to say like late morning, and I'm realizing nobody's really been calling me or checking on me, and I know by now a lot of them know that I had the baby, but nobody's really checking on me. So I called my friends and was like, I just had the baby. Are you gonna come to the hospital? And they were like, "Girl, no, we going to Atlanta, or we going to Houston, or we going here or there." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" Because I'm thinking, where's the game? It's in Indianapolis. Well, why you're going to, to Atlanta? Why you going to Houston? What's going on there? And they said, "Girl, it is a storm coming. We got to get out." I said, "A storm?" And they were like, "Yeah." So before y'all think any further, no, I'm not talking about Katrina. This was in 98. So this was before Katrina. Their lawn is beautiful. This is before Katrina. So I'm like, wait, what kind of storm? Because I know the week before there was a tropical storm. And I remember that tropical storm was the worst rainstorm I had ever in my life experienced. So my husband and I had a nonprofit, and we would give youth organizations tickets and t-shirts to the home games. And typically, I would just drop the t-shirts. We would do 50. We would give away 50 tickets and t-shirts to all the home games. And typically the organizer or a contact person, would either meet me somewhere or I would go to their facility and give them the tickets and t-shirts. But this tropical storm, like from where we lived, my mother-in-law and I was like, this is just rain. Like, what? People always exaggerating around here. They take everything so serious. This is just a bad rain. But we can, we could go out in it, because they were, saying to me, you sure you want to come out? It's a bad tropical storm. I'm like, it ain't nothing but rain. Please. When we left our neighborhood, it was torrential for I don't know how long, but forever it seemed. And that water, especially in the lower areas of New Orleans where we had to make deliveries, we couldn't even drive through it. The water was coming up almost to the handle of the door of my vehicle. So yeah, we were like, wait, this is not rain. This is something different. Where we from, it don't rain like this. This is something new. So I was remembering, from the week before, about that tropical storm. So I was like, what, is it a tropical storm like last week? They said, no, it's going to be a hurricane. And like I said, this is not Katrina. This is before Katrina, okay? So I was like, wait, so what does that mean? I'm in the hospital. What am I supposed to do? Because I knew in our neighborhood, we lived in a ranch house. And across the street, our neighbors, their backyard, like they had a backyard. Then you walk up and there was a pathway. And then there was a wall. And over that wall was Lake Pontchartrain. But it always was remarkable to me how we had to walk up to that trail, and that water was up higher than our house, basically. So I'm thinking, wait, we are in a ranch. We live by water. What's this going to look like? At that point, I had never experienced a hurricane in any capacity. And this is in 1998. So, and neither had my mother-in-law. So I was trying to get my husband. I couldn't get him because this is really before, well, I think we might have had cell phones, but it just wasn't like that. I don't know. And plus, he at this point was on the airplane, and so I couldn't reach him. I called my mother-in-law, and she was like, yeah, he told me to, Clancy, that's what she calls him. Clancy told me, oh, these are nice stairs to their house. Clancy told me to take Dino, our dog, to the vet to get his shot so he could fly him back to Jersey so your parents can get him, and then come to the hospital, and I would stay with you until the storm passed. She said, because a lot of your neighbors are starting to leave, and they're not saying it's mandatory yet, but they're recommending our neighborhood evacuate. And I was like, what? So then I'm calling my mother, and my mother is in New Jersey. She's freaking out. Even though she has 2 grandchildren by my brothers, I'm her daughter. So she's like, I'm going to try to get a helicopter. I'm going to come get y'all. I'm going to come get y'all out of there. I don't know what I could do. I have to see how I can get there. So, of course, she couldn't get a helicopter. But, y'all, this neighborhood is so big. I don't even think I've ever walked around this part of it before. Hopefully it'll lead me back. I hope it's all loops around together. There's so many different types of homes here, because this is like that new school Philly style type of house. Then we have a lot of different types of homes. But anyway, so my mother-in-law, mind you, our vet was literally, outside of our neighborhood, it was in walking distance, basically, from our house. And the airport was even closer, it seemed. And my mother-in-law missed the vet appointment. She couldn't get there because there was so many people on the road. She missed it. They closed. And so our dog couldn't fly. And, back then, even though you still kind of was supposed to fly with your animals, you could kind of get away around it. And that's what we was trying to do. Get around, just sending him up and then let my parents receive him. But at any rate, so that didn't happen. So she was like, I'm going to come and I'm going to just have him in the car, in the parking deck. And then I'll just check on him periodically. and I'll just be in the room with you. And I was like, all right, that sounded like a plan to me. I mean, we didn't have a lot of options. So, and then the other people that we knew, like she had a brother that lived in Biloxi, Mississippi, but they definitely was in evacuation zone. And then she had family. Well, she was from Alabama, but she didn't have a lot of family still there. And just most of our family basically was in New Jersey, New York, Chicago, or Indiana, and Maryland, D.C. And I had a really good friend, my college roommate, who lived in Atlanta. So, I'm going back. I need to turn back this way. Hold on. I was going back around. That was around the corner. So anyway, yeah. So we were supposed to. No. So then at some point in the afternoon, they told me that my son had gotten circumcised and they had taken his newborn picture. But then I remember the nurse coming in and she was like, "How you doing? How you feel?" I said, "Oh, I feel great." I mean, I was low-key. I was chilling. I didn't have any after pains during or before. I was really good. And she said, "Okay." And then the doctor came in, the OB and the pediatrician, and they were like, "Okay, Mrs. Jones, so since you are doing good, we are going to discharge you because of the storm. A lot of people are having their babies and we need the space." I was like, "Wait, what? What do you mean discharge me? Like Monday?" "Yeah, I understand." "No," they said, no. "We're going to discharge you today, right now." I was like, "But wait, my mother-in-law is on her way. There's nobody here. We have no place to go. We really can't stay in our house." And so the pediatrician was like, "I understand. Because I don't live far from you, and I'm going to Atlanta. So if you know anybody anywhere that you can go to their home, I advise you to do that." And I said, "Well, my best friend is in Atlanta." I said, "What should I do if I go?" She said, "Well, if you go there, you're going to have to go immediately to the emergency room, and so they can check the baby to make sure he's good, because you know traveling like that and everything, you don't want him to get meningitis or something to that effect." And I was like, "Wait, I did not bring my baby in this world to have to worry about whether he's gonna get meningitis." So, or jaundice, I think she said, not meningitis, jaundice. So she said, "You'll be fine." So as they teaching me at this point how to take care of his circumcision. They're teaching me how to, take care of his circumcision, take care of his navel, his belly button, and also like some last minute instructions on nursing. And I'm packing up my stuff. I got dressed. I'm packing up my stuff and I'm crying as they're telling me. And as they're telling me these things, my mother-in-law comes in and she got a pillow in her hand. She looked like she's staying the night, her overnight bag. And she was like, "What's going on?" I said, "Mom, they're kicking me out. They're kicking me out of the room. I can't stay." She's like, "What? Wait, what are y'all talking about? She can't stay. Where are we to go?" And at this time too, I did call my best friend in Atlanta, and she said, "Yeah, to come." Now, mind you, she's not married. She didn't have no kids, and she wasn't set up to have a newborn baby in her house either. But she was like, "Come on," and I really appreciate her for saying that. That gave me some peace of mind. So I'm telling my mother-in-law, I'm like, "We're gonna go to Debbie's in Atlanta," and now mind you, Atlanta is a 7-hour drive. I forgot to tell you that from where we were. So my mother-in-law was just like, "Okay." And she was very familiar with Debbie because Debbie was my maid of honor, and she just knows Debbie. Debbie was there when I met my husband, and so she was no stranger, but still. So we go home, and sure enough, my dog was sitting in the car chilling, happy to see me, I suppose. And so we get to the house, and I guess my neighbors must have been looking out. I don't know, they was just looking out, because as soon as we got in and, situated, trying to figure out what the next moves were going to be, my neighbors are coming to the house. Oh, did I tell you too? So after I had the baby, my husband did bring a blanket home for our dog to smell, to, let him know, like, this is something that's coming to the house. But when we got to the house and in the garage, and I told my mother-in-law, I said, take Dino in, then have him come back out to meet us. When she did that and he came back out in the garage, I had the baby, he sniffed, and lifted up his leg and peed on me. Y'all, my dog peed on me. That had never happened. So that right there should have told me this was going to be crazy. So at any rate, I hope that this whole video can be posted. So what happened? Oh yeah, so my neighbors come over, two neighbors next door and one neighbor across the street. So they both were like, "What are y'all doing? What you gonna do?" They couldn't believe I was home, because the baby was just born the day before. And I said, "Well, we're gonna go to Atlanta." And they said, "No, I don't think you should go to Atlanta, because that's too far. You just had this baby. No." And I said, "Well, where else are we gonna go? We have no place else." My neighbors across the street, they were like, "Well, we're going to Beaufort to our family. You can come with us." And I'm like, "But I don't know your family like that." And then my neighbor next door, they had a 2-story house. They said, "Well, you can come and stay upstairs in our house." And I said, "Well, where are you going to be?" They said, "Oh, we leaving." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to stay in your house with my new baby if you're not even going to be there." That was a generous offer, but no. And so they were like, "Well, we don't think you should go all the way to Atlanta. Just keep us posted." So when they left, my mother-in-law and I got even more concerned at this point about going to Atlanta, just because they were concerned, and they were all from there, really. So if they're concerned, then we really need to be concerned. So I started calling around. By now, it's about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. So I started calling around, and something told me to call the team chaplain. So I called the team chaplain. And I was like, "I don't know if you know this, but I just had my baby. We're home now. I just had the baby. And we don't have a place to go, and we need to evacuate." And he was like, "All right, Sherri." Wow, I didn't know. He said, "But I'm taking some families to the Superdome, like in 30 minutes. Can you be ready?" And I'm like, I wish I could say yes, but I can't. I literally just really got in. I'm trying to figure out, what to do. And so he said, "Okay, well, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting I'm going to have a caravan taking more families, picking more people up." And so I was like, "All right, I could be ready by 6 in the morning." So I told my mother-in-law, and we didn't know what to expect even with that. So we started to, I'm going up a hill, y'all. Whew. So I know it doesn't look like a hill, but it is. So we started packing up stuff, perishable foods. I got all the diapers I could that I had. I didn't have many. Clothes, the pack and play thing that we had for my son, because it had a little bassinet attached. We had our air mattress. We just packed up the truck to capacity. And I remember it was about 5:30 in the morning, and behind our house was a park, a neighborhood park. And I was walking my dog, and it was like all gray outside, no sun, nothing. And there was not a leaf stirring. I felt like I was on a movie set because it was so still. And lo and behold, I look up and I see a stream of cars heading in our direction. And that was the caravan of other wives and their kids that the chaplain was bringing and picking up to come to take to the Superdome. So I started crying because it was all so surreal to me. Like, what the hell is this? What am I bringing this baby? What's going on? Especially because it was just that, that state basically. And I ran back home, told my mother-in-law they're here. And when we opened the garage, they were all pulled out in front of our house And we got to the Superdome about 6:30 in the morning, and nobody was outside. We parked inside in the like under in the garage or whatever, and it was quiet as a mouse. There was a National Guard by the door, or some kind of guard. I don't know if he was National Guard, but some kind of guard was by the door, loaded, and he let us in. And we went up on the elevator. We had all our stuff. They had people helping us with all our stuff. Like, everybody had a lot of stuff. And when we got up to where the suites are, it was a hallway leading to each suite. And it was women, babies, kids. I felt like I was in a grown-up college dorm. People had their shorts on and slippers or socks, or just running around, laughing, music playing. And I was like, what the hell? And I looked out into the Superdome itself where the guys play, and it was nothing. The lights were off. It was just still, like nothing. It was almost like it was a picture, because in the boxes, they have those big picture windows so you can look at the game, but there was no game being played, and there weren't any other persons in there yet. So they gave each family their own suite. And it was really the mothers. I mean, just think, hardly any of us, the majority of us, were not from there. We were from all over the country. So we all needed a safe place. And with kids, I mean, we the average is probably at that time, especially for young families, was 2 kids. So it's like, what do you do? Where do you go? So they also have food for us. I don't know who was cooking it, but they did a good job. We had a common area, almost like a lounge, where we would get updates on what's going on. We had a television in our suite and a phone, a regular landline phone that we could use to call anybody that we needed to. And that was really helpful, because I was able to call people and let them know I was safe. I still wasn't able to get my husband, because, this is Sunday now. And I couldn't reach him Saturday, that night. So he didn't know. In his mind, we're still at the hospital, and his mother's there with me, and we're safe and sound. So now it's Sunday, game day. So I definitely can't reach him. So mind you, this is 1998. So, people weren't using their phones like that. They wasn't texting and doing all that. So at least they weren't texting like that. So anyway, my mother-in-law and I try to, get situated. And the one thing I really remember vividly how cold it was in there. It was freezing. And that's because that, they prepare for thousands of people. So they keep the temperature set at like 65, which is cold when it's just 2 grown-ups and a baby in a room. And so that night, I remember that Sunday night, we were going to have my baby sleep in his little bassinet, pack and play, but because it was so cold, we had him on the air mattress with us. We had a queen size air mattress, and we both were frightened to death. I was afraid I was going to roll over and kill my baby, and my mother-in-law thought she was going to roll over and kill her first grandchild. So it was something else. But rewinding it a little bit, after the game, we all watched the game together in the common area, and after the game, a reporter went to my husband and asked, "So how does it feel to know your wife and newborn are now at the Superdome?" My husband went ballistic, because he didn't know that's where we were. He went off. It was nothing nice. So then a reporter wanted to interview me while I was there. And I said, I don't want to sensationalize this. I just had a baby. I look not all that great. I'd rather talk to you once I'm reunited with my husband and everything is safe and sound. I do not want to grant an interview right now. And so that was, I guess, my shot at reality TV, because, in reality TV these days, them women would have jumped at that. But at any rate, I didn't feel it was appropriate. So we ended up staying there. The hurricane was supposed to come. It ended up being a huge tropical storm. They called it George. So for y'all who are from New Orleans, if you remember George in '98, they ended up letting the general population come in to the Superdome. They just couldn't get up. They didn't have access to the suites. That Sunday night, I gave my son his first like real bath in the owner of the Saints' personal private suite. And I took a shower in there too, which was like, what in the world? But they really, our accommodations were good. So we ended up, oh my gosh, look at this bee. So many bees around here. We ended up, what did he end up doing? We ended up staying there from Sunday morning until, let me see, Tuesday morning. And my husband, his team, they couldn't come back until Tuesday. They usually come back right after the games on Sunday, but he wasn't able to come back either until Tuesday night. So let me tell you, on our way home, I had called my neighbors across the street because one of my neighbors didn't leave her house. They just built their home, and she was like, I'm not leaving my house. Ooh, this is a hill. Oh my gosh. Hold on. Let me just try to walk. Let me try to walk this hill. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I called my neighbor to tell her I was coming home. And she was like, all right, I'm gonna look out for you. So on the way home, my mother-in-law was driving. And the dogs, that's another thing. So I told you about our trial baby and how, we had our dog. So I had to make sure no matter where we went, I was going to be able to bring our dog. So, oh my gosh, that hill. So everyone was able to bring their pets to the Superdome, and they stayed in the locker rooms. So my dog, even though if y'all know boxers, they don't mean nobody no harm. They are the most scary dogs, really. They look crazy and menacing, but they're not. But nobody, I guess, especially in that moment, knew that or believed that. So they put him by himself. He ended up being in Mike Dicka's dressing room or locker room, and the other animals were in the other one. Some of them they were able to combine, but my dog had to stay by himself. And my mother-in-law would go down there to feed him and walk him around. I didn't, because I was, in such close proximity with my son at all times, with, nursing him and whatnot. So at any rate, we're riding home. Ooh, I'm just going to stand here for a little bit at this driving range and try to catch my breath. But, and this is a beautiful scenery. So if you guys are on your treadmill, elliptical, your rowing machine, whatever, with your barbells, this will be a good scene to focus on. So I was sitting in the seat behind my mother-in-law, and my baby was sitting next to me in his car seat, and my dog was sitting shotgun in the front. And my mother-in-law was making these wide turns and running over a limb that was in the ground. And I was like, Mom, are you okay? Like, you didn't see that? And she would just shake her head like yes or no. And she didn't verbalize anything. And I'm thinking, what is going on with her? Now, I know that she would have breakthrough seizures if she didn't take her medicine right, or she was under stress. And so it started to dawn on me like, wow, she's probably having a breakthrough seizure, because this right here is stressful. She's responsible for her daughter-in-law and her firstborn grandchild, and her son is out of town, out of state. That's a big responsibility, and I guess it all came down on her. And we didn't really get a lot of rest, and it was just a lot. So I was like, trying to be real patient with her about, the situation. So when we get into my neighborhood and we have to turn onto my street, and she made another, of course, wide turn, and then she wide turned it into our driveway, and I reached forward and just slammed it into park and the emergency brake, because I felt like she was getting ready to run into the garage. And when this car stopped, I jumped out of the back seat and backed away from the car like, what the hell was that? And my neighbor started running across the street and was like, oh my gosh, like what's going on? I was looking out for y'all and I see, you know, how crazy y'all were driving. What's going on? I said, I don't know. I think she might be having a seizure or something. Please, please. And she said, okay, you take the baby, go over to my house and I'll take your mother-in-law in. And I went over to her house and I was sitting there and her husband was home and her kids. And I was just like, y'all, I don't know what I just been through. And after a while, you know, about an hour or so went by and I said, let me go back to the house. I went back and my neighbor was in my kitchen cleaning up, putting stuff away. She had unpacked my car. She had put my mother-in-law down. She said, I have her resting right now. And she stayed with me for a little while longer. And then at some point, my mother-in-law got up and she came into the kitchen and was just kind of like, hey, what's going on here? Like, how you doing? Like nothing ever happened. And to this moment, 21 years later, she does not remember that. She does not remember that part about her having a breakthrough seizure. She doesn't remember anything about that. But you know what? We are just fortunate it wasn't Katrina. So when Katrina did happen some years later, ooh, that thing right there concerned me, especially for people who just had babies and, you know, the elderly and even with the saints, because it was the season still. And so families, but at that point, I think they realized it wasn't such a good idea to have the families at the Superdome. So I know when Katrina happened, they kind of sent everyone away, like before it really happened. So, you know, they were forewarned and they sent them away. So that was a blessing. But you guys, I was only 29 years old when that happened. And at that point in my life, I had never had a situation where I had to pivot and be flexible and adjust and be concerned for another life. And so that definitely taught me a lot. It gave me a lot of strength. I became very close with the wives that were also there with me. You know, we, to this moment, you know, up to that point, I didn't have connections with some of them. But even to this moment, 21 years later, I could pick up the phone and call any of them. And it's like yesterday. So I did gain some really good sisterhood friends. And yeah, that was my experience with my son in the Superdome as a newborn. You guys, that's my real talk for today. I hope that at some point you're able to step out. I hope wherever you are, you can step out for a moment to get some fresh air and to stay safe. You know, this virus is real. So just any nugget you can glean from this, any story time that you received from this, you know, if you enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're already not part of my team, I would love to have you. Be sure to subscribe, like this video, share it. And until we speak again, stay safe, because this has been Real Talk with Coach Sherri.